rough draft thoughts paper that may indeed end up getting published somewhere. Like I put on my TikTok. Um, but yeah, here we go. Thankins theory. That's what I'm gonna call it. If I end up putting it somewhere, credit to the guy who told me. I'm in like a Discord group. That I'm like in a lot. I talked to them a lot recently, last couple of months, and yeah, I'm a hyper creditor and a hyper discreditor. And so if I end up publishing it somewhere, I'll call it Thankins theory. But here we go. Um, you ever been in like that situation? Usually in like the early sexual prime of your life, where it's like you're 18 to 22 maximum, or maybe it happens later in life too. I don't know. Probably depends and shit too. But there's a girl. Maybe you like her, maybe you don't. I guess it varies sometimes. But in my situation, and I don't know. He said he didn't like the girl that this happened to with him, but I don't know if I'm really gonna take that as an answer. Um, but the girl starts being mean to him. Starts trying to piss him off. But there's a smile behind it. Usually. There's a bit of, well, not really, behind it. Why does this happen? What do you do next? How does that work? For me personally, I didn't do anything. I just like, wow, I have a weird mix of emotion. Well, she pisses me off, but also I'm sexually interested in her, I guess. No, really, I am. Yeah. I guess she doesn't like me. That's such a weird thing to do. Why are people like this? Forgets about it in 10 minutes of thinking. Moves on to some thinking about it, astrophysics. Like, well, fuck, I'm gonna do something valuable with my. That's literally what I did. There's a particular instance I'm thinking about. That's literally what I did. And, this is like when I'm 17. 7 years ago now. 8. I guess I'm hyperfixating on a point in my life. It was how many years ago? Let me really think. Yeah, it was 7 years ago. Damn. Everything I say now is from 7 years ago. I did that once when I was 7. I thought about everything I did when I was 4. I don't know. We'll get into that later. Let's not go off track here. I'm just saying my old thoughts that I didn't get to put on paper yet. So, Thankins theory goes like this. Okay, they're both sort of interested in each other. They both sort of pick up on that to some degree. They've had something happen. They're now both interested in each other. Mix of visual, emotional, conversative things, whatever. Woman starts being mean to him, pissing him off. In his case, it went on for a while. He really didn't like that. And then he reacts in a violent sort of way. That then turns sexual for him. And in his own quote, he said, now I'm gonna get rid of I'm gonna do a third person quote. This is his quote too. It's not from me. But he said, in that moment I was willing to go to jail. He said that he raped her. And his goal was literally to hurt her with his penis. So maybe they're like closely linked in the head, the violence and sex. And so she had engaged in a commonly used psychological tactic to engage both of them. Okay. He said it went on to the point where like she was like trying to get him fired, and so this alludes to it being later in life. And then just like late high school is where I'd say it's probably most common, I'd imagine. Um, But I'm going based on little information here. But yeah. So now, why does this happen? Let's get out of here. Let's get out of the new thoughts. Let's go back into the old thoughts. Um, so women want like a high value man. It's a thing I've heard before. Makes sense. They want the highest value man they can get. But now here's something that I've added. So they want a guy who, like, obviously they're not going to be interrupted. It's not like they're going to start doing stuff that gears towards reproduction with this guy, or maybe even the act of attempting to copulate, to reproduce. They don't want that to happen. That turns out, oh, he's not, like some social standing, some group dynamic, some structuring of society at the time, whatever. He can be stopped from interacting with her. He can be stopped from copulating with her. She will not potentially get the support from the guy going forward and having the child. So then it makes sense for her to test, especially in a time when he's not likely to try to pursue her, to see if he's willing to do that, like in public or like, around the group. Like, does he really have the authority to reproduce with her, essentially? Does he have, whatever it is, the authority, the balls, the gusto to continue on and continue doing that behavior in the environment? Would it be bad for him? If it were to be bad for him, how would that play out? So, like, I need some water. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, but it's busted open. Yeah, I knew that. Alright, cool. Okay. Alright. Fuck. Cool, great. I'll probably slowly leak until it entirely empties. That's fine. So why does she do that? Why is she mean to the guy who likes her? And, like, she likes him too? Well, because she's seeing what is he going to do? Is he going to do it? And then if he does do it, then maybe it tells her, well, of course he's interested. Tells her that. This guy is not only willing to fight her off to reproduce, but also anybody else, potentially. Okay. Makes sense. Alright. So now, another scenario, because we're doing like a book of psychology here to start. We're doing like the physics approach, So, when I say the physics approach, I mean you don't really know anything. You go off little information, little observations, and you apply it to a greater framework that you then use to understand things that you don't know. Okay. So anyways, it's used everywhere. It's a big thing. They do it in all the stuff. But anyways, another one. Here's another one. I was talking to this girl like just now. She was telling me about things. It made me think. It reinforced the idea that women want the highest value man that they can get. Okay. But then, obviously, men want the highest value woman that they can get. If they're forced to choose one, which in modern society is something that is gearing more towards. So, But a woman's side of it takes more, it's a whole having the baby type of thing, carrying it around 9 months, having less defense, needing more food on a personal level, like on a one person level. I mean, not always is that societally the case, but on their own personal level, that is true. So, it would make sense that the deal only closes when the man is seen as being of higher value than her. Sure, they both want the highest value partner they can get, but for the deal to close, the man has to be of higher value. Men want to protect their children. Even if he's such a high value man that he doesn't end up staying, he'll still want to protect his children. A low value man, hypothetically, we just hypothesized in the first scenario there that the high value man didn't actually find his highest value match and then moved on. He might still protect his children, and he'd probably have a greater resources. His value might be determined somewhat by resources, or the ability to get resources, or physical power, or a mixture of things like that, or mental power, or something like that. Maybe all together, Maybe even just stance in the society, Is this somebody who's respected by other people? Do they have, an army behind them? Do they have lots of bread? Stuff like that. It's like, well, okay. All right. So, if the woman's not the highest value woman for the guy, it still might work out well for her. But if the man's not the highest value man for her, then she could have gotten more resources with the other guy. She could have got more protection. She could have got more bread. She could have been in a higher societal standing. So that sort of makes sense. So we're going to play with that idea from here, this point forward. And if you find flaws in it, then you move on. You change it later, So they both want the highest value partner, but they're willing to settle for a situation where the man is of higher value than the woman. If they can't find their perfect matches, it's fine. But it's not fine the other way around in most cases. So, psychologically, what does a woman do if there's a man who's very, very interested in her? And this sort of points to the idea that he might be a lower value man than her. Maybe just try to gain resources. Maybe just try to not put out and gain resources. Maybe if you're considering settling for them, try to piss them off. See if all those things from previously were true. Okay. So either try to gain resources or try to piss them off. Maybe even both, which is a commonality in fetishes. Fetishes had by men. What else? There's more I was going to add to this. I don't know. Let's just give it a... Let's do a little side thought here. So I thought to myself how my work is entirely undervalued by society. And then I thought to myself, and these are two separate thoughts that I'm now linking together, by the way. Adding that, I don't need to add stuff like that. That whole sentence in the middle, I didn't need that. This one too. But I'm really here right now, you know what I'm saying? And these are thoughts from previous, so I wanted to do something now. I guess that's the answer to why I'm over-explaining, as I would sometimes refer to it as. But yeah, okay, that's cool, I like that. I feel like I really got somewhere with myself on that. But, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, here's the second thought. So, Basically, what people want is reproduction, physical protection, and food. They want a place to be in the ecosystem. I'm rephrasing now. They want a place to be in the ecosystem. That's all. It's what every organism wants. Food, reproduction, and a place to be in the ecosystem. You know, a sustainability for them and potential offspring. You know? So we can see that as like having protection from other organisms, disrupting our place in the ecosystem. Having an ability to maintain and keep the ecosystem. Having an ability to expand the ecosystem to then support more of us and our genetics. That being humanity, or even just your closer family, or even just you. Or on a grander level, the entirety of life. And then the same with its food, which seems to be derived from nuclear fusion. And its ecosystem seems to be derived from nuclear fusion. And its ability to expand its ecosystem, which seems to be derived from nuclear fusion. And I'm a nuclear fusion expert. You see where I see myself as undervalued? There we go. But so I need to touch bases with these things. So what? I'm a nuclear fusion expert. Nobody gives a fuck about nuclear fusion. They give a fuck about those three things, which boil down to place in the ecosystem. So by tying those two together, I then produce a value that's apparent. Okay, so let's do that. We're starting here in psychology, which has to do with the reproduction aspects. Because I'm good at other things than just the nuclear fusion. I'm really undervalued. Or in other words, I have not gained my true value. Which is true of many people in many parts of their story. But anyways, let's get back into psychology. So, it's also true that the man wants a high value woman. So what if he just looks at the highest value woman? What if there's nothing more to that than that? They've made a value system. You look at the highest valued one, you decide you want it. I mean, so what? That doesn't make it the best value option for the woman. There might even be more than one person trying for it. So then there's psychological things that are derived from that. So I mean, there's the actualization of potential, which might bring you up to the higher potential. But then there's just the testing of what is now. Who has the highest value now? There's physical attributes that they're attracted to that align with this. But let's get back into psychology. Like interactive psychology. Verbal or physically expressed interactions between people that play into psychology. So if the woman's truthfully interested in her, not because of her value, but because of like a personal connection or something like that, a personal independent value from the society, then imagine the guy was to raise his value in the societal sense. Now, as his value raises, maybe his goes up to here, hers is right here. It's staying the same while he raises his value. Now his value surpasses her value. Okay. Is he still interested? I mean, value of women changes too over time. There's probably now a higher value woman because of the amount of time that it takes to raise the value. Is he still interested in her? Was it a specific value that he sees? Is there an actual genuine interest, as people would say? Rephrasing it in that sentence prior to this. Or was it just he wants the highest value woman? And if he does just want the highest value woman, then it'll be a different woman at that time. Or the true actualization of the value. So that's why men sort of get set on this path of truly actualizing their value over time in some regards. And it's a common trope in stories, and it's a common thing in history. It's a thing going on today. Actualization of value. Okay. But let's get past the actualization of value because that was only one regard. Okay. If it's not the actualization of value, then is this truly just a higher value man in disguise? No, I don't have any place to go with that, do I? I'm trying to think. Is this currently okay? Is this currently just the most interested? Let's get rid of that. These are things to maybe come back to potentially. But okay. Do they together see a personally, do they personally value each other over the value system of the society? Do they have like a personal like thing with that? That's like a Romeo and Juliet story style. Not only does the male see the female as a like best partner, better than societal standings. I think they both see each other like that. Get distracted. Um, I gotta make sure that's like. There we go. And that's probably a better standing relationship. You want both of them to have like a higher value in one another, opposed to other people and their value systems. But if you don't, that's common. I would presume that to be common in relationships. If you were to look at like the relationships that exist, you'd probably, I imagine, 90% or more of them to be not that. Or maybe that, but just it's gained over time because of one of the previous things having had happened. But then also, there's misassessments inherently. And a lot of failed relationships. So we could go on to further hypothesize about that. And maybe we could expand all these ideas and sort of like go back and over them a whole bunch of times until it's like a really in stone psychological systems of relationships. Maybe that's what the book will be called. Maybe we'll go over it so many times that the title changes rapidly from that. But that's how I do my work.